This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses. After quite a long hiatus, I'm sort of playing jazz again, and it's not something that I necessarily was expecting, and not something that I'd necessarily planned to do too much. But I wanted to talk to you guys about it in the hope that maybe it encourages one or two of you to maybe pick up a guitar and try some of this stuff if you're interested in it and been dabbling. Myself and quite a lot of the people that I talk to are more like closet jazzers, where it's like you feel like you can do like a bit of it, but you don't feel like you're on that level that of course so many of the greats are. And I think that's okay. You know, I think a lot of people are aspiring to play like Jonathan Kreisberg, Julian Lage, or you know, Kurt Rosenwinkel, Gilad Hexelman, you know, any of the greats, but of course most of us are going to fall short of that. But I don't think it should put us off entirely, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk about in this video. Now, I'm going to sort of do a little bit of playing around the idea of around midnight. Now, if there are people out there that are looking for some more chord melody stuff or want me to do some more jazz lessons, I can't really do them properly on YouTube anymore because they get demonetized, and it's like a little bit of a risk of copyright strikes. But if you're thinking this actually might be interesting, then do drop me an email, maybe leave a comment on this video, and if anyone emails me with like a request, I guess we could start doing this like on Patreon, where it's like I'll just give like a lesson on how I would approach this tune. Because I used to do this thing where I'd take a tune a week and then just play that tune for the entire week, and by the end of it you have a pretty good memory of the tune. I was putting together a chord melody where I'd play the melody and the chords at the same time, and it, I think, has really set me up to be able to sort of hack my way through a jazz gig on like a duo basis, or like if I was, you know, playing with someone else, or even in like a quartet, that sort of thing is a bit easier. But get to a level where you could survive a gig, and I think that's quite a nice feeling, especially as we maybe start to get older. key thing for me. The number one thing I think gives you the feeling like you know enough to do this sort of thing is if you're able to play a few jazz tunes without like looking at a chart, or you know, do these things like where it's like, okay, I know sort of you know, where you can sort of put a tune together a little bit. Like this. And more than any of like the being able to solo over this stuff, the thing that made me feel most secure that I could maybe sort of gig this stuff was just being able to know what some of these tunes went like. And that just comes from making a plan, essentially, that each week you would learn a new tune. So it was a thing that used to take up like a lot of my time. It used to be that jazz was basically the only thing that I would particularly practice, because I would have like a regular gig where I was playing keys, and so I sort of all of my practice time was based on picking like a jazz tune to learn for the week, whether it's Wayne Shorter, you know, Chet Baker tunes, standards. So I think that is absolutely the number one thing that I would try to get across to you guys, like that if you can play a chord melody or a few of these things, like Georgia on My Mind was another tune that I've been gigging at a place called the Newt in Somerset, so leave a comment below if you've ever been there. It's like a super posh place, but you know, me and Will's been asking me to do a couple of gigs there with him. And cool tunes like Georgia on My Mind, and I normally do that song in F. But he's like, can we do it in E? And being able to do that sort of thing as well, I think gives you like a little bit of a boost. This is one of the other things for me that I kind of thought was a bit of a thing, which I don't think is actually as much of a thing as you think it might be a thing, but I had it in mind that maybe a jazz player should be able to play basically any tune from the repertoire. And you talk about this sort of thing, but like that's something that people that have been doing it for maybe decades can do. And I've seen Jonathan Kreisberg play live a couple of times now, and like 50-60% of that set list was the same, and that's Jonathan Kreisberg. So I think basically, like, once you've got your gig, people really do narrow down. And I've talked about this before, but like if you look at like the careers of some jazz players, it's not like there's a huge, they don't do a version of every single standard out there. Like they have like a curated list of tunes, so there's something to think about as well. So like maybe over the career you might learn and have to do gigs with other people where you've learned like 300 tunes or whatever, but these guys aren't recalling these things off the top of their head necessarily totally for every single gig. It's not as complicated as that in some ways. I mean, in some ways it probably is. You know, when you see a touring jazz guitarist and the set list, you know, over like a 2-year gap is stayed more or less pretty similar, then you get the sense, actually, okay, well, these things are a little bit more prepared than, you know, just someone calls a tune out of the air and everyone on the bandstand knows how to play it in whatever key. I think there are these sort of jazz myths that seem to go around a little bit that can sort of be a barrier to entry for people that don't feel like they're on that level. But actually, I think having a go at it is worthwhile, and seeing where you can end up, because I think, yeah, for me and my buddy Will, we both don't necessarily feel like the most competent jazzers ever, but it is really rewarding once you actually get and sit with a guy and start playing some of these jazz tunes. And again, as long as, this is the thing that has really given me some confidence in it, is if I learn like the head of that tune in a way where I can play the melody and hang a few chords off it, then I'm kind of off to the races. So like there's a tune that he called Bossa Dorada. So I would learn it like this, and then I would listen to what chord it is, and I would try and play a chord with the melody wherever I'm playing. You know, and just and once you've got that part of it, so you can play the melody and you can play a couple of chords on it, the rest of it sort of starts, in my opinion, to feel a little bit less scary. Because if you can play a chord, you can play the melody, when you'll come time to solo, it's kind of, you've got like these things that you've been working on. I also don't think you need as many scales and stuff as you might think. You know, if you know your major scale, harmonic minor scale and melodic minor scale, and can outline arpeggios pretty well, then I think those are kind of the core skills that you need in order to be able to kind of sit and play jazz with a buddy of yours. And I really would encourage some of you guys to try some of that stuff. Anyway, if you are looking for chord melodies and bits and pieces like that, I do have some on my Patreon. If you join at the £2 tier, you'll get a bunch of those if you kind of filter chord melody. But if you want me to do some more of this, you know, send me an email and encourage me in that way, and I'm going to try and get back on the horse, so to speak, so that I can start to put together some more chord melodies and start diving back into the world of jazz a bit. Let me know if that's been any interest to you guys at all. Cheers for stopping by.